Well, hello there, YouTube kiddies. I want to do a little video. It's probably going to be like two things. You're going to get 2 for 1 here. It's a 2 for 1 deal here. Get comfy trucking, alright? I've been kind of, I don't know, noticing some interesting developments in the CR England camp. The other day, I stopped at a petrol truck stop, and my old man actually met me there at Petrol in Joplin, Missouri. So we went in and had breakfast. He kept going. I was waiting till later that day to roll and go get my trailer washed out. When I came back in for breakfast, I realized that there was a CR England truck that was parked next to my truck, and he was over the line and into my parking space. So he was, less than a foot from my truck. The trailer was cockeyed, pointed towards my trailer, even more so that, it's one of those things where if, I had to go and look up and down the truck and trailer to make sure he didn't hit it because he was that close. I was rather angry, and when I saw the driver get back in the truck, I went over and I didn't give him shit. I kind of politely accosted him about it and said, hey man, you don't know how to color in the lines or anything as a kid? He apologized, said he was a new driver and all that, so I didn't pursue it farther. I just kind of talked to him for a few minutes and suggested that, next time when you come to a stop in a parking spot, maybe jump out and have a look, see where you are in the lines, right? I know it was dark out when you pulled in here, so it's kind of hard to see, but just jump out, have a look, see. That way you're not in someone else's space, because there are lines painted for a reason. But when he got in, I noticed another guy climbed in almost immediately after he got in, and then 10 minutes later, a third guy got in while I was talking to the first guy. And I'm sitting there wait a minute, there's 3 guys climbed in that truck. What's the deal now? So I Googled, is CR England doing three-man teams, and I came up with CR England now has a 3-sleeper truck. Literally all of the shelving and everything above the driver, or above the cockpit, whatever you want to call it, is removed, and a fold-down bunk is installed. So you can now have 3 people inside that truck. And I looked at it, I watched 2 or 3 videos on it. One guy said he wasn't huge on it, but he wasn't running 3 people in the truck. He was basically being an extra storage space. The first guy loved it and had 2 trainees, and I was looking at it this is ridiculous. Trucking, again, if you're going to get into the mega carrier thing, it's bad enough that you're going to be stuffed into a truck with at least one other person and be forced to spend several weeks with them, whatever. Now you're doing it with a third person, right? So you've got 3 grown, sweaty men all sleeping, burping, and farting in a very small space. There is no personal space, no privacy, no room whatsoever at this point. And the arguments. The one guy was very. I'm gonna say who he is. He's, an older guy, seems happy, and that's great. If he's living the dream as a trainer doing that, then more power to him. But he's all we're out here straight up killing it, and it's great. And it's man, how the hell are you enjoying this? And maybe because you got the bottom bunk as the trainer, but your 2 trainees got a friggin' more or less you're staring deep into each other's eyes all fucking night because the beds are opposite each other, and you're in that bed for 20 hours, right? Because CR England does when you're a trainee, you're running as a team. You are now switching out, every 20 hours instead of every 10 hours. So, you run your 10, you go to bed for the next trainer or the trainee, then you're still in bed for the trainer to do his shift. Then it's your turn again. And even if it's if it's the trainer doing the job, then I guess, or sitting in the passenger seat, and it's just switching between the 2 trainees. I guess that's not quite as terrible, but it's still somewhat limiting your time with the trainer, right? One of the guys kind of went on, oh, you get more time with the trainer, you get more of this, and I'm sitting there trying to find out, like, how by adding another student do you get more one-on-one time with the teacher? Because that's a big problem in schools right now, is the student-to-teacher ratio is too high, that students aren't getting enough one-on-one time with the teacher. So why, again, it kind of sounded like super pro company, bullshit, I guess, to be blunt. If you add an extra student, you are not getting more time. You're now sharing your time. The other argument he said is you will get your license quicker. So the only reason I can see that being a thing is that you get all the miles that truck drives in the span of whatever it is, 3 to 6 weeks, credited to you, even if you're not the one driving those miles. So, while you're asleep and the other trainee is driving, his miles are somehow credited towards your driving, your driving experience. Because if it's not, it should take you twice as long, because now you're waiting for someone else to finish their shift. Or at the very least, it will take the same length of time, I suppose. Right? If it's a setup where the trainer never does the driving, right? He's training, so really it's 11 hours on, 10 hours off. Now you're doing 11 hours on, 11 hours off, and the truck is still rolling. So the only way it makes sense for you to be getting out of the truck faster is if they're crediting the other trainees' hours or miles towards you, and that's not right. Right? That is basically churning guys out with almost zero experience. And again, if I look at the guy that parked next to me, he was a nice kid, but he clearly didn't know how to park between the lines. And he's like, I'm pretty sure I didn't hit you or anything. I said, no, I would have felt it if you hit me, right? But I was polite with the guy. I said, you got to get out and have a look, right? See where you are, because you'll get the one driver that is really, really unhappy that you've parked here, and he's going to come over and scream at you. And your trainer's going to sit in the bunk and hide because he doesn't want to deal with it. And you're going to be forced to, as a brand new driver, get screamed at for something. Again, you probably genuinely just aren't sure on how to deal with it, or they haven't kind of trained you or told you what to do in a situation like that, right? You're backed up and you're cockeyed. Well, should you just go to bed, or should you move the truck? And again, you should straighten the truck and right, center it in the space the best you can. Because ideally you want to buffer on both sides. We were lucky. We're facing the exit, so both of us could just pull straight out and leave. But if I'd had to do like a cockeyed turn, there's always the chance that I might hit him now because he's that much closer to me. And I'd like to think that I would stop before that happens and get the guy to move. But then he's got me angrily telling him to get the fuck out of my way. So it's kind of he hasn't received enough training yet. Another problem I've seen is some of the guys in these videos, if you go back a year on their YouTube channel, they're posting videos about how they're in driving school working to get their CDL. And it's like you've been driving for less than a full year and you're a trainer. Again, I think that's ridiculous. And what it boils down to a lot from what I'm getting is a money incentive. Right? A friend of mine he kind of asked about it because I posted a link to one of these videos of a three-person truck. And he said, like, wow, they just not find people to train, or what's the deal? I said, no, it's just everybody that works at CR England or Swift or whatever has to go through their training program, most of which include a mentorship program. Guys typically don't want to have a new idiot on the truck. Idiot, I use that in quotes because again, it's just they don't know anything yet. But to have a new driver on the truck with them, right? Because they'll make mistakes. So companies like CR England incentivize having trainees, right? Well, you get an extra 10 cents per mile, or an extra 15, whatever it is, 20 cents per mile. You get a pay bonus. So suddenly the money is better. But you're not ready to train somebody yet. I'm not ready to train somebody. I don't want to train anybody. I'm very happy driving by myself, but oh wow, that guy screwed up. Wish I turned the camera. Roadway to my right there's probably icy. So there's a ditch, and it's just a steep, like a 3-foot wide, just 2-foot drop. And a car somehow gotten straight into the ditch, cleared the one side, and his bumper hit the other side of the ditch, so his wheels were suspended midair, so he can't go anywhere. He's just stuck. Oh, that's funny. But no, you get a lot of guys that are, like I said, they're not ready to train. He said, I've been driving OTR for basically two years and a couple of months, right? It was 2 months as of October 2018. That's nowhere near enough experience to say I have experience. That's nowhere near enough experience to be buying my own truck or driving a truck like this, and it's nowhere near enough experience to train anybody by a significant margin. Yeah, and it's not the trainer's fault. I want to make that very clear too, right? If you started at any company anywhere doing any sort of job, you work at McDonald's and it's your 3rd day flipping burgers, and the manager comes over and says, I'm going to give you an extra $2 an hour to train these guys, you're probably going to take it. Why wouldn't you? Well, it's extra money. Like, you'd almost be stupid not to, and that's kind of the problem is that some of these carriers are incentivizing becoming a trainer to the point where guys that have no business yet, or maybe at all being a trainer, are signing up to be trainers. And not all of them are like some of them are like the one video I got, the guy seemed to have a very positive attitude towards training. He said, like, he wants to do it so he can help other guys start their career, and he seems sincere, right? So that isn't quite as bad, I suppose. Again, I don't think he has the educational, the required amount of time driving a truck to really be training somebody, but at least he has a decent attitude about it. I met a guy who worked for another carrier that is an acronym, and their trucks are gold, and it's not KLLM. And he, I was astounded at how full of himself this guy was. He was a young kid, probably around my age. I'm 30 now. At the time, I was 28. And I went in the truck stop, I parked for the night, went in to buy some snacks, and he's standing at the fuel line, and he's trying to strike up a conversation with the pretty girl behind the counter, and she's there to do her job. She's not particularly interested in listening to a 25-year-old, slightly chubby kid with glasses brag about how successful he is. So he turns to me and starts talking, and it was, well, I wish I could get fuel here. I said, no, okay, that sucks. He's like, well, really, I can get fuel wherever I want because I'm an owner-operator. And that's great, man. I just said bye to the lady and leave. And we went on different exits, but we ended up meeting each other in the parking lot. So I'm like, oh shit, I'm pretty much obligated to have a conversation with this guy. He proceeded to tell me all about how he was a lease purchase driver with this company, and he made 80 cents per mile. But he made 90 cents per mile because, and I shit you not, he turns sideways, almost does like he's going to show me the guns, points to his shirt, and says, and it's got a tag, it says driver trainer, because I'm a driver trainer. I was like, well, that's awesome. Again, I can tell already that this guy has no business training somebody. He's like, yeah, I make my rookie drive all the night, and I choose what I want to pay him, so I give him, 5-10 cents a mile, and I keep the rest. Like, so you're using him as free labor, you're using him as slave labor, effectively, right? And he was very proud of himself for it. He was very proud of his money. So he of course, we started talking money. He's like, yeah, I pay $800 a week for this truck. So, okay, well, $800 a week, so you're $1,200 every 2 weeks, so you're $3,400 a month. On a base model, very base model, 2016 Cascadia, a 10-speed, and that's it, right? No features, no frills, no anything. At the time, I was doing a lease purchase myself, which I'll do another video on. I keep saying I'm going to do a video on, and I keep forgetting because I keep getting distracted by hip new topics to talk about. You know, I had a lease purchase. I had a brand new 2017. This was in 2017, 389, fully loaded, like decked out to the nines. And I paid just under $200 more than him, not factoring in the difference in the Canadian versus the American dollar. If you do that, I was paid less than him. Right? The Canadian dollar is worth more, or how do I put it? The US dollar is worth more than the Canadian dollar. So something that is, say, $500 Canadian is $300 US, right? For just the sake of throwing numbers out there. So my $3,600 Canadian was more like $3,000 US. And my dollar per mile, which was not particularly great, but it added up to $1.13 US per mile. So my mileage rate was higher, right? Even factored in the exchange rate, and with factored in the exchange rate, my truck payment was lower. I also only had 5 years. He had 6. So at the end of the day, he is going to pay, if he were to pay that truck off entirely, he would pay like to the order of $12,000 to $20,000 more than I would for a base model Cascadia versus a brand new or a fully loaded 389. And again, I'm not a particularly confrontational person. So I left it. The guy's happy. That's fine. So he's like, so what do you drive? I said, I got that 389 over there. So why would you want one of those big useless trucks? Fucking no fuel economy. You can't, you know, big hood on that. You can't get it into anything. And at that point, I'd had enough. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, I can get that thing anywhere you can get this piece of shit. And I turned to walk away. He finally kind of stepped me over that being polite thing because, you know, I'm standing there the whole time letting him brag about his truck, and I'm not shitting on it. And as soon as he finds out what I drive, he starts shitting on it. Now you're fucking done. Your truck's a piece of shit, and I don't like you. But again, it was the guy who was so proud of the way he was treating his trainee, and, you know, basically he thought he'd found the niche of churning through his trainees like they were fucking like a resource rather than a human being trying to better their career. And that's how he was going to make his big money. And it's like, that's stupid and it's despicable, and it's a problem with the mega carriers now is they're trying to appeal to driver greed and get the drivers to do the training for them, right? Because again, it's far more expensive to hire a proper training company or a dedicated trainer and have a course set up and training trucks to use. It's way cheaper and actually makes them more money to have a trainee on the road moving freight around with a trainer, right? So they're generating revenue paying miles, right? And the problem is that they're advertising it, and again, I don't know if I think CR England is one of the companies that has been approved to run like basically a straight team setup. So while the trainee is driving, the trainer is in bed. Well, that doesn't really make any sense because then he's not training. The trainee is just literally driving a truck. Right? And if something goes horribly wrong, you can wake the trainer up and ask him for help, and that's it. But in terms of when you're driving down the road, he's not getting any training, right? So again, I would rather have a rookie trainer with a positive attitude than an experienced trainer with a shitty attitude by any stretch. So again, this particular person that made this one video, because he seemed to have a very positive attitude towards his trainees and how he wanted them to succeed. It's like, okay, I would rather have him as a trainer than this particular guy that I met in the truck stop, right? Even if the guy in the truck stop had a lot more experience, which I don't think he did. But it's a frustrating piece of terminology. And what I wanted to get into kind of as an extension of that is, because I made this story as a segue. I didn't make it up, but it was a good segue into the differences between company drivers, owner-operators, and lease operators. Because I see a lot of videos covering this. There's a lot of drastically differing opinions, and they're typically held by either lease purchasers or owner-operators. Again, being an owner-operator, I guess I'm dismissed as in that second class, which typically try to look down. A lot of guys look down on the lease purchase thing. I've been a lease purchase driver, right? I have, 8 months of experience as a lease purchase driver before it wasn't going to work. So I think I've got a little. I've been all three. I've been a company guy, I've been a lease guy, I've been an owner-op, and there are differences within those terminologies that I think a lot of people forget to cover too, right? I think really what you have in terms of, like, say, a tier between full-on working for the man and completely on your own is a company driver, a lease purchase, or a leased on carrier, or a leased on to a carrier, and then an owner-operator with your own truck, and an owner-operator with your own authority. Right? A company driver is pretty self-explanatory. You make so many cents per mile working for a company. They own the equipment. They should pay for everything regarding that equipment, fuel, all the expenses. If they're not, you're working for the wrong company. Right? If they're expecting you to pony up cash, you're working for the wrong company. Again, that one's pretty self-explanatory and pretty straightforward, right? You work for the company, company pays you not shitloads of money, but okay money. You more or less go where they tell you, do what they want you to do. A lot of times you get your benefits and all that good stuff. This guy's gonna fucking ruin my pass. This dumb little truck. 3/4 of the way around this guy, and I almost guaranteed he's not gonna go fast. Oh, he's gonna get in the right, so just hold that guy now. That's outstanding. Oh, he actually did pick up pretty quick. I didn't think that truck would accelerate that fast. Where was I? So the next stage, again, company guys I think are pretty straightforward. The next stage is a lease purchase. This is the one, again, a lot of guys get into, and a lot of them, because there's a bit of shame, because so many people, and it's literally just like peer pressure based shame. A lot of guys get a lease purchase, and then they've got dozens of guys that either are owner operators or aren't, saying, "Oh, why would you do that? You're a fucking idiot. Oh my God, you're a moron." So the guys get hesitant to either one of two ways. They either get hesitant to admit that they are a lease purchase driver, or they're hesitant to admit that to say that they're an owner operator, right? And then there are guys that, nope, there's no difference. I'm an owner operator, and there is a difference, right? There is absolutely a difference, and I think that what I see, especially with guys on, say, YouTube, I've seen this on multiple channels, is, guy starts his career as a company guy, 6 months in, gonna get in the lease game, gonna drive my lease truck, I'm an owner operator now. And 6 months later, why I quit my lease purchase at whatever company, right? I've seen it from like 5 or 6 different channels that I've surfed through, right? And it's more or less always the same story. They didn't make any money, right? They couldn't afford to pay for the truck anymore. Some guys make it. There's other videos out there like, why lease purchase is the best thing ever, why I make money. There are companies out there that will make a lease purchase work. There are companies out there that don't give two shits if you survive or not. The average company typically will basically do what they gotta do to make their money, right? And again, generally speaking, it's in that company's best interest to have you run, because if you run, you're making money, and the money that you're making, they're already getting their cut of it, so they're making money, right? So that's the theory, but that doesn't always work. What you're running into, the problem with a lease purchase, is that your success is in someone else's hands. All right, you make the truck payment, right? You pay for the fuel. You're on the hook for all of the bills, right? And you're promised however many, whatever mileage rate, however many miles, and again, in optimal conditions, you can be more than successful. I did okay for the first 6 months as a lease purchase guy. I made money, more money than I've made since I've gotten into trucking. E-logs killed it for me, and I'll get into that. Where was I here? So guys end up, everything's good until it's not, and then it's a problem, right? A lot of guys, it could be as simple as the freight market got quiet. Sorry, man, we got no work for you. It could be you pissed your dispatcher or whatever the fuck you call them, driver manager off, right? Oh, sorry, man, we got no work for you, but secretly they're just feeding it to someone else because they got enough freight, they got enough trucks to, they're not throwing loads away just to screw you over, right? So the problem is that whether somebody misuses that power or not, the power over your success is in someone else's hands. It's in your dispatcher's hands, right? It's in the shipper and receiver's hands for how long they hold you up. Where if you legitimately own your truck, okay, fuck you, I'm gone, right? Like if I didn't like where I work now, I could pack up tomorrow and say your trailer's in St. Louis, see ya. And I take the truck, I have my own ride home, I have my own way out, I can go to another carrier tomorrow and get a job, right? Trucking, you're never going to want for work, right? But with doing a lease purchase, typically you can't do that. You can, most are walk-away leases at this point. So yes, if it doesn't work, you hand them the keys, you walk away. That's fine. But you're still not an owner-operator, right? You're now looking at either going to another lease purchase company and trying it again, or going back to being a company driver, right? You're not. The only way to be making a step up is if you succeed in the lease purchase. And again, that is not necessarily dependent on you. You can work your ass off. I've known guys that have worked their ass off, but the shop doesn't like them. And where I did the lease purchase was notorious for them. A guy would pay his truck down until about 2 or 3 months before it was scheduled to become his. And where we worked, they tried to insist on it always coming to the yard for shop work. Well, the shop came in and said, well, you've got all these problems, so suddenly he's got $30,000 in problems. Well, we're taking that off your pay. Well, you can't afford to pay the truck payment. Well, we're repossessing the truck. So the company basically had that truck paid for by somebody else, then fired the guy, right? Or said, well, what we can do is we can flip you into a new lease and we'll start everything over again, right? We'll do a clean slate. We'll give you a new truck, start a new lease. But now you're back to 5 years, and that truck goes to somebody else, and they'll sell it to him, right? That's why the company that I worked for was notorious for that. And I knew that going into it, but I also knew I wasn't going to keep the truck. I wanted to drive a 389. I only had 6 months experience, and I wanted to go to the West Coast. They gave it to me, right? But guys lost their shirts there. After I left, the company switched to e-logs, and I could no longer get to California in 3.5 days. It took 4.5 to 5 days, depending on the time of year. And I remember the first time I was going to be late because of weather. I think it was fire. They were doing a whole bunch of controlled burns in Nebraska, and I called dispatch and said, "This is what's going on. Well, why can't you make it?" It's my e-log. Well, I'm going to be out of hours here soon. Well, I don't care about any e-logs or no e-logs. You better get there. We're not going to fucking give you freight anymore. Like, you flat out said that. I said, man, like, you guys are the ones that put e-logs in the truck. I realize the government wants it, but I'm not the one that insisted on an e-log in my truck, right? I have to abide by the e-logs. So I got there late. The receivers were actually pretty okay with it. Went home, and I never got that freight again. They actually did take me off that freight. I started running shorter stuff. So my pays went from, after the truck payment, after all of my bills, around $3,000 to $4,000 every 2 weeks, to about $500. Because you're out for longer, you're putting in fewer miles in a day, and you're, in the span of, say, a month, you're doing less loads. You're flat out doing fewer miles in a month. The trucks were all governed at 65, and you were not allowed to remove that governor. Again, some guys did. Some guys with Cummins, like some of the trucks, the Kenworths had Cummins, like the W9s, so they could put a bully dog on it and open it up. All the Pete's had Packars. At least at the time, you couldn't tweak them. So I couldn't get any more speed. I could either take the governor right off, which would get me in a lot of shit, or leave it on. So I opted to leave it on. My last pay when I left was minus $500. He said I owed the money. So I brought the truck to the yard. Here's the keys. Sorry it's not working out, but there's no way I can afford to do that, right? And I got lucky. I got along really well with the payroll staff. Just, yeah, no, you know what? We understand. It's no big deal. You know, we'll mail you all of your logbook sheets and all that stuff. And they did. I clean break, no problems. But again, there was a guy I worked with there who stayed, and he continued to make no money for, I think he stayed for another 3 months. And he ended up almost completely losing his shirt, like lost almost everything. He left and immediately went to another lease purchase provider. Within 6 months, he had lost everything. He had nothing, right? He had his wife in where the fuck is he out of Alberta, but he was getting a carrier out of Ontario, Canada, so he's days away from home. And he had nothing. He couldn't even, I think his wife had to borrow money, or he had to borrow money off of his friends to get a bus ride back to Alberta. And the guy is older, right? He's around retirement age, maybe a couple years shy of retirement. And I think he's a nice guy, but he's never going to own his own truck. And at this point, he doesn't have any retirement savings, right? He's going to work till the day he dies. And it's because, and he'd been at the company I was at longer than I had, right? He was there for almost a year before I started, if not at least a year, right? He was a hard worker. He worked harder than I did, and yet he has nothing to show for it. And again, there are guys that don't, like, see that they don't piss off their dispatch, they don't piss off their management, they don't piss off their shop, or their shop genuinely likes me. Because I had that same shop actually liked me quite a bit, right? I got stuff thrown on the truck for free. I got, shoot the shit with the guy that runs the shop, and so I actually had it a little bit easier. But it was still a lot of guys make the mistake of clinging on. So if you're going to do a lease purchase, do it because you're going to make slightly more money than a company guy. Don't do it because you think you're going to own a truck. Some guys, again, do it because they think they're going to own a truck, and they try, right? They figure they will own a truck. I'm going to make this probably a 2-part video because I've noticed that it likes to fucking end the video at random, anywhere between the 30 and 40 minute mark, and then it just deletes what I had done up till the 30-40 minute mark and starts up again fresh, so I lose everything I did for the last half hour. So we're going to do that. We're going to stay tuned for part 2. There are lots of 2-parters in this friggin' YouTube series, let me tell you.